I'd like to take a little bit of a step back and ask why it is, or what are we looking to accomplish by talking about or recalling doing what we're doing. What are we looking to accomplish with the Holocaust? But it could apply to other events as well. And for this, we need just a couple of words of Hakdama. And the Hakdama is that we each have certain things that we know to be true. Those are very personal and they grow as we focus on them. There are certain truths. If I say to you who don't like pickles, and I say, yes, you do, you really like pickles, the response is, with no point in having the discussion, because knowing me as I know myself, I know that I don't like pickles. So we're looking for truths in our self that are basic, fundamental truths. And it is to those truths that events that happen in our lives and happened before our lives build. Let me explain to you what that means. A truth, even though you have it inside you, does not mean that the truth doesn't need to be built. It's true inside me, but everything, Chazal tell us, everything that's important in our lives needs chizuk. You need to strengthen it. And so what we're doing is we're starting with a truth that we already know. We are getting more than just confirmation. We are getting strengthened to that truth by events that happen in our lives or by things that we see. And it could be things that we learn, could be things that we hear about, and certainly things that exist in history. I just want to clarify it, so one step more, just to make sure that everybody has what I mean. The Chazal tell us that if the Torah was not given, we would learn bathroom tznius from a cat. We would learn from the cat. Cats you have to give them some sort of litter box. We would learn bathroom tznius from a cat. Why would we not learn to rip open plastic bags from the garbage and take out the chicken bones and the fish bones from the ripped open plastic bag and make a big mess? I mean, if we're not given Torah and the Chatula is our Rebbe, then how do we know to learn bathroom tznius from the Chatula? And listen carefully to the answer. The answer is because I know the bathroom tznius is a good thing. Elokim asa es ha'adam yashar. He gave us a deep truth inside ourselves. So you say, well, if it's a deep truth inside myself, then why do I need the Chatula? And the answer is that every truth that is inside us needs strengthening. If it doesn't need strengthening, then it isn't a really useful truth. If it's not a truth that you need to build on and build up from, then it's not a real truth. So again, we're starting with a truth that if I encounter myself and I get to know who I am, I will know that truth because it is part of me. It's wired into me. I will then notice, wow, the cat has exercising tznius. It doesn't choose to exercise tznius. We're not learning from the bechira chavshis of a cat. We're learning from an event. And there's an event and a reality in the world that Hashem placed there so that we can confirm our internal truths. And in that way, you now are more attached to that truth. And by the way, you become more attached to more of your truth. So if we were to say that there is an event that happened, whether it's the Khurban, whether it's the destruction of European Jewry, and we say, what am I meant to learn from that? To be very careful about how you ask that question. Because it's not what it teaches you, it's what you choose to use it for to confirm your truth. It must be something that you know internally that this event strengthens. And if it doesn't work that way, then you're not focused on your truth. And that's why you can revisit the same event in your own life or in your history. You can revisit that event and get more and more from it as you become more attached to your truth. Famous story that the Chafetz Chaim said, you see from the phone, or I think it was the telephone, whatever. It's make believe it was. You see from the telephone that what you say here is heard there. He needed to learn that from the telephone. Chafetz Chaim didn't know that what you say here is heard there. Of course he knew that what you say here is heard there. And he was open to recognizing, wow, if Hashem presented me with a telephone, it must be that Hashem is giving me a moral lesson to strengthen that which I know. Everything in our lives is waiting for us to grab it as a moral lesson. And if you don't grab it as a moral lesson, it comes back and it haunts us. And for this, I'd like to borrow an idea that is sort of a bit of a Kabbalistic idea, where there's a Kabbalistic concept of sparks of Kedusha that are trapped. There's sparks of Kedusha that are trapped and need to be released. So let's say somebody davened, but there was all sorts of distractions, and the Kedusha that was created by the davening is trapped under the distractions. If you go to that place, or you do a mitzvah, or you learn Torah, you can draw out that Kedusha. So the Kedusha isn't lost, it's trapped. And if you can release it, there's a tremendous release of spiritual power that comes from releasing that which is in there. I don't think that there's any place where Kedusha is more trapped than in the Holocaust. If we could use the message of the Holocaust to do what it is meant to do, to bring us closer to a recognition of Hashem as both our Father and our King, it would be an explosion of Kedusha that would come from the Holocaust. It's being trapped under people who just want to study it historically, under people who use it to challenge where Hashem is, on people who point fingers at somebody else, people. It traps the Kedusha. There are events in our lives that are waiting to give us their full fruits. These events are powerful events that are meant to give us a tremendous boost in how to live our lives. But instead of giving us that boost, they're trapped under the nonsense. And so what we're doing is we're creating a model for how to look at events that are loaded. Well, how do I know the events are loaded? Well, because they come with a tremendous emotional charge. An event that has a big emotional charge means that it is potentially a great boost of spirituality. It's a great emotional charge that lasts and lasts and lasts. But that charge cannot be released until we look at that and free it up from any nonsense. Well, if I'm going to free it up from any nonsense, what do I need to do? And the answer is you need to connect it to an internal truth and start using it. That is what people are not used to doing. They're not used to using the events in their lives to build their truths. We're all wired to confirmation bias. Somebody believes something, and all of a sudden everything else in the world confirms what they already believe. I'm not sure if that means that they're building. What new awareness, what new depth did you now come to? That you now saw the cat, and so now you're more connected to the idea of tznius. You now were exposed to this event, to this talk, to our getting together. Well, for each person, the answer is going to be different because each person is starting from a different place of being connected to their internal truths. Elokim asa es ha'adam yashar means that Hashem implanted in each of us truths. And he then gave us the opportunity to get strengthened in those truths by the events in our lives, by the events in the lives of others, by the events of history. And so what we're interested in is making that connection. What does this speak to my truth? And generally speaking, if something in your life, anything, has any emotional charge to it, it probably means that there's something that's true inside you that is trying to get confirmation, that is trying to come out, that is trying to get out from underneath the rubble. And that will free up the sparks of holiness in the event. You went to the oven, or you went to the cabinet, and there were no more of whatever it was that you were looking for. So if it's a small event and it doesn't really speak to you, I wouldn't start there with trying to squeeze all sorts of insight. But let's say it really bothers you and you start getting angry Like, how come? And I feel so stupid. Why didn't I pick some up? And then I got, wait a second, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a lot of emotion. What's the truth that that event is trying to help you bring out? And that is why we look back at these events, because we want to look at all events and free up the message, free up the sparks, free up the growth that those events are summoning us to. And so we're going back to the Holocaust because for me, and I believe for a large part of the generation that has been affected by the Holocaust, now already the generations that have been affected by the Holocaust, have not gone back and drawn the sparks from those events. It's time. It's time. It's time to use those events because they're big events and they're events that bring up tremendous amount of emotion. And to not use them is to squander them, but worse than squandering them, it's to bury those sparks. Would anybody imagine that Hashem would bring about events so cataclysmic and so dramatic in the world, and then we are not meant to use it? I remember that story. They were doing an interview with somebody who was in a troop carrier. The grenade was launched into the troop carrier, landed on the lap of one of the soldiers, and it didn't explode. And he had the presence of mind to grab the grenade and throw it back out of the troop carrier. And it exploded outside and they were saved. And there's a radio announcer who was obviously also had been in a combat unit, was interviewing the fellow who was sitting right next to this story as it happened. And he's describing it. And as he's describing it, the interviewer is getting more and more excited, like he can't believe that this is happening. And he's giving him all the details. And the interviewer says, well, what happened with your friend with him sitting next to you who was able to, he said, I don't know, we lost track of him. He became religious. I don't know, he's learning somewhere. I don't know exactly. He says, yes, of course, I understand. Well, and what about you? So he goes, me? It happened to him. It happened to him. Listen to those words. How many sparks of holiness did that one line bury? Huge sparks of holiness were sitting there in the excitement of the interview. And this fellow buried them. And now they're waiting underneath the rubble of his line. Well, it didn't happen to me, it happened to him. And underneath that rubble, those sparks are waiting to be released. They're waiting for him or somebody else who hears the story to say, do I need an event to happen to me? For it to resonate with truths that are inside me? That's a very inefficient system. Every event needs to happen to me. I know that this event took place. What am I doing with it? This didn't happen to me, it happened to him. The ultimate burying of the spark. And so the reason we are going back and trying to review these is because of our effort to re-encounter the events in our lives and to somehow, hopefully, to somehow be able to connect with them and use them. And as we use them, we free up that energy. And that energy is now able to permeate the spiritual world. It's able to rise up. It's able to be our friend. It's able to help us grow. And until then, all it was doing was getting old. I remember learning from Rachel once, many, many years ago, that she learned in sort of an Oriental, like, don't have dead things in your house. Don't keep dead things. That's why old people's houses tend to feel old. Don't have dead things. Well, this is a new twist on a dead thing. The idea that some event is sitting there in the rubble and it's not helping me grow. Don't throw it out. All of this Kedusha is in there. Free it up. How am I supposed to free it up? The answer is connect it to a foundational truth in you. Find those truths. This is simply true. And I'm able to build on it because now the event is able to give me a next level of confirmation. Obviously, the basic truths that we need to start with are the truths of Hashem's existence, the truth of the fact that we are not here randomly. Those truths we need to connect with, that life is valuable. These are basic truths. You don't need me to tell you them, just like you don't need me to tell you what to learn from the cat. You know it, and that's what Chazal are revealing, that you know these truths. I'm going to push the pause button because A, it's been a while that I've been carrying on, B, that I have a cold, and C, maybe there are some comments or questions, and you are free to unmute yourself if there are. Otherwise, I will wish you a good week, and I will be very grateful for your thoughts.
I just wanted to ask,
Please.
I'd like to say that I want to trust my inner truth and I know what to connect to, but I don't think in this point in our lives we're that clear and clean. Like anyone going to a hafganah thinks that he's fighting for the truth and that he's finding the sparks but as you said, people go for confirmation on the truth that they think what they think is true nowadays.
Right. So let's start.
Where do I connect? I mean, obviously there's the basic truths like you said, but there's still so much more building on that we've sort of covered up in our lives.
Most people are not looking to build their truth. That's how you know that it's not a truth. In other words, if I decide that I have my bias, my position, Shiva people should be in the army, and that's my position. So I would say to you, okay, how do you build on that? What's the build? How does that help you live? How does that help you get more of who you are meant to be? No, it's that them and their, well, forget it. If it's them and their, then you haven't found any truth at all. And if it excites you, if the idea of participating with a tzibur, if the idea of participating with a sense of community, if that speaks to you, find that truth. There is a self-correcting process. You need to start with whatever truth speaks to you, and there's a self-correcting process because the confirmations that you get will all show you either this is something I can build on, this is something I can grow with, or this is something that just leaves me stuck in the same place. If you have a truth, then Chamisha will allow you to overcome 100, but 100 will allow you to overcome 10,000. That's what it means when you build exponentially on a truth. But we live in a world where people just don't consider it important to discover truths that they can build on. So start with whatever truth you subscribe to, feels right, and starts to resonate. You start seeing, and if you take a piece of truth, you will get help. Hashem will help you through the events in your life and in the lives of others and in the history of our people and in the history of, you will get help to build that which you have connected to as being part of your truth. You never have to worry that you'll be abandoned. Your truth you will be able to build it to the point where you'll be able to stand on one side of the river and the entire world is on the other side of the river, and you'll say, but isn't it obvious Hashem created the world? But everybody's on the other side of the river and they're all saying you're crazy. And you know what? I don't even need to debate it. It's absolutely clear to me. How did it become clear to you? Well, I started with a simple truth that complex things don't happen by themselves. And I just built on it. And to the point where Abraham can stand on one side of the river and the whole rest of the world is on the other side of the river. That's how he was able to build. He built on a basic truth. That is why it's called hikir. He recognized the truth. But he started from within. The within was, this didn't all happen randomly. That doesn't make any sense. It's not the way I think. I don't think of complex things as happening randomly. It's a crazy distortion to think about complex things happening randomly. You got to be a dork to think about complex things happening randomly. Why would anybody think that way? That's not the way I think. When I think about something complex, I think about a lot of design. I don't think about complex things happening randomly. Just use your basic truths and you'll build on the basic truths. I don't know if that helps fully, but maybe it gives you some food to move forward in this thinking. It's a good question.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing this. All too. Bye-bye.